Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's live stream. We have lots to discuss, as usual, from the election campaign and more. So I'm looking forward to spending the hour with you. Do fire comments and questions in. I'll get through as many of those as I can. There is no special guest apart from yourselves this evening. So I'll be able to get to more comments than usual. Well, where do we start? So many things. Let's have a look what I've got on my little slides here. Just a little reminder, if you're in the Aberdeen area from the northeast, we've got a meeting on Friday evening. There's details on our social media. 7 p.m. I think the start time is. Saturday afternoon, I think 3:30 p.m. in Stornoway. We've got a campaign launch meeting for our candidate there. And on Monday evening in Tarbert and Harris, we've got a campaign launch there as well for our by-election candidate in the Harris ward by-election. So it'd be great to see you at any of those meetings. The week after, I think it's Kilmarnock. We've got a meeting, but we shall see. So do keep an eye on our social media, see what is going on. Right, good evening, Kathy. Right, let's have a look what we've got to talk about. I was just going through some my images folder on my computer the other day. I just came across this. I was talking to someone about this quite recently. When I was at the Franciscan Friary, I mentioned that I'd made this table. Just a little reminder of it. I do quite like it. It illustrates the contrast between the Catholic Church's teaching on various aspects of sexual morality and life as well. And it contrasts the Catholic Church's teaching with what is taught, not discussed, not presented as an option, taught as fact. It is the message of sex education teaching in Scotland. You can see it's like a systematic reversal of the teaching of the Catholic Church. I say the Catholic Church. Any Christians with traditional Orthodox Christian beliefs would agree with virtually all of those. And many Muslims and people of other faiths or no faith would agree at all. That's always a good reminder that it is as though the mission of the Scottish government was to just turn traditional morality on its head. And obviously it's election time, so I need to give the punchline. The punchline is, if you vote for them, then this is what you're voting for. If you vote for the SNP, then this is the message you're voting for to be delivered to children. If you're voting for the Greens, well, this on steroids. But Labour the same, Lib Dems the same, Conservative basically the same as well. Basically the same. They might be having a bit of a wobble on the changing gender bit at the moment, trying to appear that they're not quite on board for that. But basically they're on board. They don't go quite as fast as the other parties, but they head in the same direction. So it's a little reminder. What else have we had in the election campaign this week? Oh, this was a crack. I mean, Rishi Sunak keeps doing this. He keeps trying to play I'm the person who's knows what a woman is. We're clear about this transgender stuff. And we had Nigel Farage today doing it as well. I know what a woman is. I think, again, you always say, look at the policies of these parties, and their policy is not to repeal the Gender Recognition Act of 2004. So they say, we're going to sort out the confusion. I know what a woman is. But if you really wanted to sort out the confusion, you'd repeal the law that is the heart of the confusion. So Nigel Farage, Rishi Sunak, not interested. You can stand there talking about this as long as you like. I'm not convinced. You're not going to get to the heart of the issue. Now, I've got some very bright stripes appearing across my face. The sun's just popped over a building. I'm just going to close my blind. Give me a minute. Right, that could have been one of those moments when you realise the presenter's wearing shorts or something, but I wasn't. So, yes, so what the Conservatives are saying, they're going to adjust the Equality Act. So they're saying there's a lot of confusion about transgender people. So is this really a woman or is it a man? So we're going to solve the confusion by adjusting the Equality Act. I mean, how mad's that? How crazy is that? I mean, can they not see that the heart of the matter is the law that says a man can become a woman? It's not that there's something wrong with the Equality Act. They just need to get to the heart of the matter. I find it so frustrating listening to this debate going on and just thinking no one's getting it. No one can see the obvious point at the heart of it. But as in so many other issues, it feels like the Scottish Family Party is the sole voice of reason. Don't Don't see you in shorts. How dare you? I wear shorts a lot. I wear shorts for my bi-weekly run and lots of other occasions as well. So, right, Biden's administration has ruled that a woman is a menstruator. All right, okay. So that will just be, again, another element in a confused picture, failing to get to the heart of the matter. It's not just the politicians, it's the journalists too. The journalists say, what's a woman? And the politician says, an adult human female. And the journalist thinks, oh, right, that's good. I didn't catch them out there. They gave a really good, solid answer. But no, the journalist should then be saying, so why isn't your party repealing the law that says that's not true? They never gets there. Anyway, that's our job. Skinny jeans. I'll probably drop out of this conversation, I think. I'm not sure where this one's heading, but let's leave that one there. No certificate to make a man menstruate. No, indeed. So, what else have we had? The other thing, epidemic in this campaign, and it's also going to be epidemic in the voting, as well as tactical voting. Because if you look at the message of the parties, what's the lead message of the SNP? Their lead message is, we're not the Conservatives. We're the ones who can beat the Conservatives, be rid of the Conservatives. And it's quite bizarre because they're going to lose most heavily to Labour. But it's as though they sort of don't really know what to say about Labour. And when they do criticise Labour, their only criticism seems to be, you're like the Conservatives. So the SNP's unique selling point is like who they're not, who they're against. Then you look at the Conservatives. What's their unique selling point? Well, we're against the SNP. If you want to beat the SNP, you need to vote Conservative. It's all about beating the SNP. We're the most un-SNP party you could possibly have. Have you not got anything positive to say? Right, then what do Labour say? Well, Labour can't just say they're against one or the other because they're going to be both probably in some situations. So Labour's message is change. Now, what does that mean? Change from what? They mean change from the SNP in Scotland and the Conservatives around the rest of the UK. So their message as well is not to do with what they're offering. It's just that we want to change. We want something different than what we've got. And so in that atmosphere, that tends to encourage tactical voting. Because even the politicians, even the political leaders are giving the message, the most important thing is who you keep out or who you get out of office. That's what really counts. It's not about any positive vision for the future. We've just got to get them out or stop them getting in. That's what really matters. So if people then base their own decisions like that, well, first past the post system, if the person who's in, if they don't like them, then this logic says, oh, you vote for the person most likely to beat them. Because the important thing is getting them out. It doesn't matter who you get in, as long as you get them out. That's the important thing. And the problem with that, of course, is then you end up with an endless cycle because people always say, I've got to vote tactically this time. It's just this election. In this particular election, everyone needs to vote tactically. I mean, in the future, vote for who you like, but this time, so important. Have you ever known the election where these people say, you know, this election, this is the one where you don't need to vote tactically. This is the one where you should really vote for what you believe in. Have you ever heard that? No, never. Now, the thing with small parties is they grow through getting votes. So it's a chicken and egg situation. So, you know, I'm not going to vote for them because I don't think they're going to win. But right, so how are people going to think, well, maybe you're getting somewhere, maybe you're more credible, maybe you're going to be able to win? Well, parties get there by getting more and more votes. So every vote for the Scottish Family Party encourages us and it encourages other people to take us seriously, and then they're more likely to vote for us next time. That is really important. Because when it comes to vital issues, some of the issues we campaign on, the other parties don't really want to touch. Then if you just keep voting for the other parties, these issues will never come to the surface. They will succeed in their mission of keeping these issues off the political agenda completely. And the way to stop that, is to vote for what you believe in. There's a lot more I could say on that topic, and I'll say other things on other weeks. But yeah, tactical voting is going to be a big thing. Vote for what you believe rather than against whoever you think might be slightly worse than the others. I mean, Labour's saying they're offering change. Compared to the SNP, what's the difference between Labour and the SNP? Not very much at all in terms of their ideology. They've been going on nuclear weapons. That's something to. I just saw something that's saying Labour wants to have more nuclear weapons, and the SNP wants to tackle child poverty, eradicate child poverty. Well, I don't think you're ever going to eradicate child poverty, but to compare those things and suggest those sort of alternatives is a bit ridiculous. In terms of nuclear weapons, Scottish Family Party doesn't have a policy, really. My personal opinion is I'm in favour of them, but a bit conflicted, because I think some of the philosophical arguments are difficult to counter, arguments against them. Another reason why we're neutral, I think Catholic teaching is against nuclear weapons, and I understand the logic of it. So I think if we did take a definite position, it could be very divisive. But personally, I'm in favour of it. In fact, I had an email from, I think it was CND the other day, and it said, as an election candidate, will you commit to abolishing nuclear weapons in Scotland? So I replied saying I won't be committing to that. But if you'd like to come on our live stream to discuss it, you'd be very welcome. Please come on. Let's have a chat about it. But of course, needless to say, I call Scotland the debate desert, don't I? Now, if you're a CND activist and someone invites you to a discussion in front of their audience, a chance for you to put forward your case, I mean, would you not jump at that? Would you not think, well, of course I want to do that. Of course I want to. Present our case to a political party. What could be a more valuable thing to do as a campaigner? But no reply. No reply. I don't understand it. Scotland is the debate desert. People do not want to debate, discuss, interact. It's strange. It's strange. I don't think it's healthy. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. Right, okay, I think, right, in your area, we've published a candidate list a couple of times on social media. We'll keep republishing it, because obviously we can't expect people to go scrolling back and finding it. But we'll keep publishing it. You can check the list. I think we're going to have, I don't know, 16 or 17 candidates in the election, which is about right for us, about matches our finances. We probably could have got more people, to be honest. We could have covered more constituencies, but our finances are very stretched as it is with that. Now, on that topic of our finances being stretched, this would be an excellent time for we to mention our crowdfunder, which I'll just paste into the comments. So if you would like to make a contribution to our general election crowdfunder, we would greatly appreciate that. Again, I'm a terrible politician, because you're not supposed to admit things like that. But our crowdfunder, the actual crowdfunder, been a bit disappointing so far. It's just coming up to £2,000, I think. I thought it might have been twice as much, or maybe significantly more than that by this stage. But we'll see. Maybe more donations will come in through the campaign. I think other parties are finding this is not the most inspiring general election campaign in terms of donors. We've had substantial donations through other means, directly to the bank account, by check or whatever, which has been very good. Actually, other donations have been very encouraging. But do contribute to the crowdfunder if you're able. We would obviously appreciate that. Our candidates are dipping into their own pockets in many cases, which is very good of them and demonstrates their commitment. But it's a totally different game, isn't it? I mean, some people, let's say, you pitch up at the Labour Party, deliver a few leaflets, get to know everyone. If you're reasonably articulate and presentable, then they'll probably say, "Oh, will you be a candidate for us?" Then you can become a candidate, and then the political tide turns. The next thing you know, you're an MP or an MSP, and you're getting paid, I don't know, £80,000 a year or something, and you're a public figure. Wow, what a difference! What a difference that route is compared to standing up for what you believe in, with the family party. Because with the family party, I say there's no money coming your way. There's no great status or whatever, and nothing like that. It's completely the opposite. I was thinking of making a video out. You could tell me what you think about this. You might think this is over the top, but it's come to mind, so I will float the idea past you. I was thinking of making a video standing on top of Salisbury Crags, which, if you don't know, is a big rock formation overlooking the Scottish Parliament. And I was going to make a video sort of mirroring Satan's temptation of Jesus in the desert. When he says to Jesus, "If you'll just do this, then I'll give you power and fame or whatever. But if you'll just do this one thing, that's what I'll give you. So they're going to stand in there and say, if you'll just endorse such and such a policy, if you'll just shut up about this issue, if you'll just say this, then this is what you can have. This is what you can have. Is that too strong? Is that too provocative? I don't know. I'm thinking about it in any case. So let me know what you think. Right, let's have a look at comments here. Right, hello, Peter. I don't remember seeing you on the live stream before. Right, hello. When families sometimes break up, do you have a policy for family law in that regard after separation when children are involved? Peter, we absolutely do. This is an area that we are very concerned about, and we've looked into quite a bit. We've got policies on it that are very strong. At the moment, I don't know, I was going to say thousands. That's probably a correct phrase. I mean, thousands of parents, particularly fathers, are denied access to their children unnecessarily. And it is an absolute tragedy. It is appalling. What happens in some cases, every case is different. What seems to happen in some cases is to be an acrimonious split up. And it seems that sometimes some of the women's charities, I've heard this from several sources, they will coach the woman in the split up, they'll coach her about what to say in the legal proceedings in order to prevent the ex-husband getting access to the children, which is a pretty, well, evil thing to do. It's a horrible thing to do. But it's been done at taxpayers' expense as well. I mean, it's really terrible. And then the courts themselves, the decisions they make, I think, are very, very skewed. Now, of course, that there will be cases where denying access to a parent might be perfectly reasonable. It might even be perfectly reasonable that happens to be fathers in the majority of cases. Maybe that's the way it works out, but the way the system's working at the moment is not right. It's a severe problem, and we will be very keen to sort that out. Very definitely. Hold the perfect fix for family law system. Take 75% of cases out of court. Do email us. Email us at contact@scottishfamily.org, and we'll be very interested to hear about that. One of our other policies in this area as well, we think sometimes it seems the Scottish government's agencies, social work agencies, and the courts are a bit trigger happy in taking children away from parents as well. So we're recommending that these decisions to take children away from parents, which is a pretty drastic step, should be taken by a jury, not just by professionals. Let's just have a group of normal people looking at the situation, making a decision. I think that would be much healthier. Peter, just going back to your story as well, sorry, the issue you raised. One of the striking cases I came across about this was a man who I met who had a daughter. I think the daughter was about 12, I think. And he'd split up from his partner. They weren't married, split up from his partner. And his partner had an alcohol problem and some other, I would say, some mental health problems. He was quite unstable and wasn't in a great situation. So this went to court, and custody of the daughter was given to the father, which, from what I can understand of the case, seems a very sensible decision. I think there could be some sort of access, but supervised or whatever. So that was the decision of the court. But then one day the mum basically sort of kidnapped the girl, got the girl to come and meet her somewhere, and then took the girl to her house and said, right, she's not coming back. She's staying with me now. So totally defied the court order. I mean, what would you imagine should happen in that situation? You'd think phone call to the police, like emergency social work. They'd be around that night. They'd bring her back to the man and say, right, here she is. Right, we've told the woman you cannot, don't you dare do that again. Well, that could be like kidnapping. This is the decision of the court. She stays with her father. But when I spoke to this man, it was well over a year, if I remember rightly, since this had happened, and he'd had to go through all sorts of additional court procedures to try and get his own daughter back from his ex-partner, who seemed to have more or less kidnapped her. It was utterly, utterly bizarre. I saw all the paperwork related to the case, so I'm very confident that this is an accurate reflection of it. I just say something far wrong. Right. So, right, so Jonathan, All right, very good, thank you. Niall Ferguson, the historian, are you referring to there? Is that Niall Ferguson? Yeah, I assume that's who you're referring to. I'm quite a fan of his. In any case, right, let's see what else we've got on the menu. This was an interesting one. Very interesting. Now, if we went back 2 years, we went back in our time machine 2 years, all of the Scottish political parties in the Parliament, I think I'm right in saying, would have had a rainbow-eyed version of their party logo on social media. Now, last year, the Scottish Conservatives didn't do it, but I think they did it the year before. If it wasn't the year before, they've certainly done it in the past. The Scottish Conservatives have had a rainbow version of their oak tree, but the other parties, all of them, there will be a rainbow version of their logo for Pride Month. But what date is it? 4th of June. No sign on any of them. Not even the Scottish Greens have got a rainbow on their logo. Anyone like to guess why that would be? What's different about June this year compared to every other June? Well, I think the answer is quite straightforward, isn't it? The answer is there's a general election. There's a general election. And doesn't that just summarize what's going on? It's like the companies who will have their Pride logos all around Britain, but then you go to like the Saudi Arabian branch and not a sign of them. So I think they know in Britain, general election, this doesn't really go down that well with a lot of people. This isn't great for our popularity. We just want to just keep this off the agenda for the time being. So let's forget about it just for general election period. Once the election's over, back to normal. Back to normal. So that's, sinister is not the word, cynical of them, I think. And it reveals what they really think. They actually think the plastering these rainbows all over their social media accounts actually doesn't boost their popularity. So it's a strange acknowledgement, isn't it? So when they do that at other times of the year, their calculation is there's some people who really love this, so it's worth doing it to get them on side. And probably the parties themselves really believe it. The downside is they know some people that don't like it and they get a bit fed up with it. But their calculation is, who cares? They keep supporting us in any case. You know, they vote for us in any case, so we don't need to worry. But I think that's a very interesting insight, that all the rainbows have disappeared when Pride Month comes in an election year, election campaign. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting indeed. I've got some videos for in a minute, but let's just keep going with my slides for now. Right, this is one of the SNP ones. Don't let Westminster block your vote. And what they're referring to here is you need to take photo ID to vote. Now, I've always thought it was utterly bizarre that you could turn up at the polling station with nothing, and you could give a name and address, and then you could go and vote. I just thought that was absolutely bizarre. You don't even need to take your polling card with you. You could turn up with nothing. So, I mean, you've heard America, stories in America about people who died and then someone goes and votes with them. But for that, I mean, if you're in a house with other people, if the other person, one of the other people don't vote, you just go and vote for them. I mean, I find it really bizarre how lax the system was. So having a system whereby you have to identify yourself positively in order to vote, that just seems perfectly sensible to me. Now, in America, they've tried to make a big thing saying that's racist because there's more people of, well, are they minority, of non-white ethnic groups that are affected by it. That doesn't make it racist, obviously. But the SNP's line on it is different. They're saying it's an evil plot by the Westminster government to block your vote. Now, say to anyone in the SNP, how about a bit of integrity here? Is Westminster trying to block your vote? Is that a fair and honest piece of election campaigning, Mr. Swinney? So, Miss Forbes, is that honest? Can you put your hand on your heart and say, yes, that is an honest piece of communication in order to inform the electorate of the issue at stake here? I think the answer is no. It's disingenuous at best. And not impressed, SNP, but do remember your ID when you go along to vote for the Scottish Family Party if you've got a candidate in the election. Right, that's me. I went to school today, which I really enjoyed. I went to Manor Christian School in Edinburgh. It wasn't an election campaign thing. This had been planned for a while, planned before the election was called. Now, I've been to the school a couple of times. I know some of the people there, and I offered to go and lead a maths activity. I was a maths teacher in a previous life. So I went along and did that with the class. It was very good. I enjoyed it in any case. Now, schools like that, Manorfield School, there are lots of quite a few Christian schools like this around the country. There's a Muslim school in Edinburgh opened recently as well. I think there might be others around the place as well. And our message to those schools is, instead of being little independent schools, in some cases operating on a shoestring because they want to really keep the fees down. They want parents who want to send their kids, they want them to be able to send their kids without being particularly wealthy. But if the Scottish Family Party was in power, schools such as that would receive per pupil funding the same as state schools. So just imagine how that would work. So for a start, if you're a parent thinking, I'm really not confident sending my child to the school down the road, I don't like what they're teaching, I don't like the ethos, I don't like a lot of, so or alternatively, it might be, I want a particularly Christian or Muslim or whatever, ethos. So you feel you want a different school and you choose to do that, then you have to pay for it yourself. Whereas what ought to happen if you make that choice, then the state should pay the same money to that school as they would have paid to the state school down the road. Now imagine what that would do in terms of competition. I mean, what would happen? There would suddenly be a flood of people out of state schools, a massive flood. And there would be a huge expansion of little independent schools. Well, they'd become big, of independent schools around the country, operating on basically the same budget as the state schools. Would that be a healthy thing for education in Scotland? It would be brilliant. Imagine what the state schools would start thinking. They're saying, oh no, look at all these pupils we're losing. Right, we've got to sharpen up our act here. Why are they leaving? We've got to do something about it. And that competition would be very healthy indeed. I think would be a fantastic influence. Well, I think generally, I think with Christian schools in particular, but the same with Muslim schools as well, there's two elements. One element is leave out the bad stuff, and the other element is to put in what's seen as a positive philosophy of life, for example, a religious faith or whatever. So there's the two sides to it. To be honest, in my view, I think I would be more concerned about the keeping the bad stuff out bit. I think the religious side, there's there's parents, there's church, there's children's activities at church, whatever. So the religious side is very, very good and it's very positive. But I think keeping the bad stuff out is more of a priority, I would say. Right. What else have we got? This was a little story. I don't know what sports you follow. I follow motor racing. Not particularly avidly at the moment because it's not the most exciting Formula One season ever. But there's Esteban Ocon. He had a crash at the Monaco Grand Prix. To be honest, I can't even remember what happened anyway. Some people thought it was his fault. So it might well have been. So they were having a go at him on social media. And he says it was very hurtful. And that becomes a BBC story, a BBC sport story. You just think that's pitiful. It's pitiful. If you went back years, I mean, yeah, of course, fans complain and they call people. I mean, it's like having an article saying, such and such a football player feels hurt because the fans booed when he missed 3 penalties in a row or something. Oh, come on. But the assumption is the person who declares themselves hurt, they're the one we've got to be on their side. Someone's done something bad to them. But really, I mean, on X, I put a post with it saying, this heroic gladiator of the racetrack complaining that people have not been very nice on X. I mean, he should feel a bit embarrassed about that. I mean, maybe he didn't want it to be a headline. Maybe he didn't want it to be a news story. But reading that headline, I would hope he'd feel a little bit embarrassed about that. But it's the world we live in. There's this sort of glorification, elevation, honoring of sort of delicacy, sort of weakness in things, sort of emotional weakness, if you like. That's glorified, and like strength is like despised. If someone's a bit stoic, well, you really look down on that. There's something wrong with that person. But yeah, it's a very very strange development in our culture. I'll have another slide or two before we go to our videos. That's quick. image from our campaign launch in Glasgow on Saturday afternoon in the sunshine. Now, we've got some video from that, which we haven't released any yet. It's still being edited. Lots of people gave little speeches, so we'll be releasing a few lines from that over the coming weeks. But that was nice to have a sort of official launch to our campaign. Thanks to everyone who came along. Now this is this is quite sinister. It's actually, I don't know if you saw this on social media. Helensburgh Primary School, and this was their Equality Week. I'm not sure if it was Pride Week. It was their Equality Week, which might well be to do with Pride Month, actually. So let's look at the banners that they're holding up. Well, first of all, let's note the children. Who are they? As far as I can tell, there we've got 6 girls. Now, you'll find in schools, when it comes to this sort of thing, girls, it's always girls. It's always girls. Somehow or other in school, and the schools are so feminized that the girls are right on the wavelength. So the teachers love the girls love the school, and the girls are keen to please, and the girls tend to go along with every message that comes along in the school. They just embrace it completely. Whereas the boys are a bit sort of grumpy. They don't really like it so much. Oh, yeah, they're a bit fed up of having this sort of rammed down their throat, but they dare not say too much about it, or they'll be in big trouble. Because everyone knows that boys are the bad ones in any case. So you generally find there's girls at the forefront of this. So the signs, stop sexism. Well, it makes you wonder what they've been taught as an example of sexism. Probably the fact that like women footballers don't get paid as much as male footballers. That's probably their idea of sexism. I think stop being sexist is the top one. The big long rainbow one in the background, it says love has no gender. Love has no gender. So in other words, the teachings of Islam are wrong. The teachings of traditional Christian morality are wrong. It's just not right. It's not right. Sexual love can be between people of any gender. So again, primary school. So these primary schools are being taught as fact the traditional morality of sexual relationships is wrong. And that they're not just being taught it, they're being paraded with a big banner proclaiming this message. Right, then let's go to the front row. We've got the girl there, says gay by birth. Right, is that a finding of science? As far as I'm aware, that is something that is, at the very best, highly disputed. And I feel the evidence is falling more on the side of, well, genetics is certainly not a determining factor. And actually, it might not be that much of a factor at all. It might be some factor, but not huge. So gay by birth, well, partly it's not true. And partly it is just LGBT campaigning ideology. It's a campaigning slogan from a political movement. And this little girl has been stood there in order to promote the message of adults. The adults, the teachers in this primary school, should be utterly ashamed of themselves for using their pupils, abusing their pupils to promote their own sort of political philosophy, their own philosophy of sexuality. It's dreadful. And then we get to the worst of the lot, which is this sign on the right. Now, you can't see all of it, but I've heard someone saying what it all said, and I think it's pretty obvious what it would have said. And it would have said, age is just a number. Age is just a number. Right, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what they were claiming it means. They'd say, oh, this is children's rights. Your age makes no difference. So if someone says, you're not allowed to do something because you're only such and such your age, you should reply by saying, age is just a number. We should all be treated equally. So if someone says, look, I'm the adult, and so I get to decide, and you need to do what I say. No, age is just a number. So even on the most charitable interpretation of this, it is an anti-adult authority message that will undermine parents, but the teachers are undermining their own authority as well. The school is undermining its own authority by giving that message. It's a very dangerous message. So age is just a number. So should you have an age for driving a car? Or should primary school boys be allowed to drive cars? Because age is just a number. Well, obviously not. But then, let's look at the context. All this sexism, love has no gender, gay, the rainbows. So we've got a bit of a sexuality theme going on here. Age is just a number. So don't let anyone say, oh, you're too young. You're too young for, what's the theme again? Sexuality. So doesn't that sound a bit like a sort of bit pro-pedophilia sort of line? Age is just a number. Children should be able to do exactly the same as adults do. Helensburgh Primary School, leadership, teachers, have you got any critical thinking faculty at all? So, I mean, there's two options here. Helensburgh Primary School staff, senior staff, or whoever. There's two options. One is you're just not capable of looking at that and thinking there's something wrong there. That there's an obvious connotation there that this is breaking down the barrier between childhood and sexuality, as our friend Dr. Colin Morrison would say. So it may be a total lack of cognitive ability to comprehend the blatant truth of what's going on here. Or alternatively, it could be that they're thinking, well, yeah, that's absolutely our message. This is about as open as we can be about it, which is pretty open. And yep, that's exactly what we're trying to promote. Age is just a number. Well, take your pick, Helensburgh Primary School. But I don't think we've really got any good options there. And again, this has gone on. Whose constituency has this gone on? You know, where are the Conservatives on this? You know, nowhere. I mean, this is published in the newspaper. They should be absolutely embarrassed by that picture, but published in the local newspaper. So that's that. Right, so let's have a look at the things. Scotland Scorpion saying you're late. Yes, I've very nearly finished your book, by the way, so I will be in touch after that. Oh, that's just we were along at Vision Church on Sunday afternoon. That's Neil Deepnering speaking. We might publish a clip or two from that, but the reason I put that on is if you do go to a church or a mosque or wherever else, then we will visit, well, any sort of place. We'll be happy to go and give talks about family party policy, and with churches as well. I'm going to another church in a few weeks' time to preach as well, to deliver the message. Or so it could be anything from a talk about Christian politics, or being a Christian in politics, or my story of being led into politics. Or it could be I would speak about, give me a Bible passage and I'll speak about that. It could be entirely non-political. Now, what's in it for the church, apart from obviously, hopefully, something enlightening and interesting in terms of the content? The other thing I would say as well is quite often when I go and speak at a church, we'll advertise on our social media, and some people will come along to hear, to meet people from the family party, to hear what I've got to say, etc. And there has been a case even of someone doing that, going along to church and then becoming a Christian. So anyway, I'm very happy to come to churches and speak whenever I am invited. Right. Let's have a look what's next. All right, this is an interesting one. Did you see this? And what's happened in UK politics is a lot of Muslims. Now, this is not all Muslims by any means. There are Muslims in the family party. This is not all Muslims, but some Muslims, it seems, like Hamza Yousaf, for example, it seems to be that the Gaza-Israel conflict is like top of the agenda. It's not just top of the agenda. There's the only thing that matters. It's like 10 times more important than every UK domestic issue added together. And you can throw in every other world issue as well. All those put together, Israel, Gaza, that's 10 times more important than all of them. That seems to be the attitude of some Muslims. That seems the attitude of Hamza Yousaf. We could discuss why that is. But what a lot of Muslims have been saying is basically, we don't like the policy of the Labour Party. We think you should have been more anti-Israel, more pro-Gaza. You should have called for a ceasefire, etc., etc. Now, we could talk about the relative merits of those positions, but that's not what I want to do today. But they've said, Labour Party, you're not doing what we want, so we're done with you. We're going to have our own candidates and we're going to vote for them instead. And so what happens as a result of that? Well, first of all, do I think that's a good approach to politics? Absolutely not. We've effectively got some Muslims who are saying, right, Muslims, there's Muslims getting a hard time in Gaza, say you Muslims should vote for me because I'm a Muslim, then the Muslims will be represented in Parliament, and with the Muslims in the Parliament to stand up for the Muslims in Gaza. I think that sort of thinking is completely wrong. This sort of sectarian tribal loyalty philosophy is completely wrong. And thankfully, a lot of Muslims don't go for that mentality at all. But some do. And so the Labour Party is in a bit of a panic, and they're thinking, how do we get their votes back? So this is Angela Rayner. And the captions there are interesting. Tries to win back the Muslim vote. So she went to this gathering of Muslims and was basically saying, please, please vote Labour. What do you want us to do? Look, we're going to do this and this. We'll be anti-Israel in this way. We'll be pro-Palestine in this way. We'll call for this, that, and the other. So trying to offer as much as you can. So please, please, please come and vote for us again. Now, the point I'd like to make about this is that these Muslims, they know how democracy works. That's how democracy works. You say to the parties, we're not going to vote for you if you don't do this. And if a sufficient number do that, the parties start thinking, oh, right, that's a problem. We need to start changing our policy to get these people back. We need them to vote for us. So we've got to do something about this. And the thing I would like you to imagine, have you ever seen a politician in a church like that? Going and meeting a group of Christians and saying, please, please, please vote for us. Just tell us what you want. Tell us your demands. And honestly, we'll do them. You want us to protect the unborn. Okay, we'll promise this. We'll do our best. Have you ever seen that? No. And the reason you've never seen that is that Christians don't understand democracy the way that these Muslims do, because Christians think, you can write them letters, you can totally disagree with them, you can be horrified by their policies, but at the end of the day, vote for them in any case. And the parties have learned that. So you can write as many letters as you like. You can complain and say the policies are really bad and evil or whatever. But the parties have learned, don't worry about it. They're Christians. They vote for you in any case. So there's no problem. We don't need to go begging them and changing our policies or whatever, because they'll vote for us in any case. Well, let's hope one day that a lot of Christians understand democracy the way that this group of Muslims have, and therefore get that difference. Now, one way of communicating that, because what's happened here, the Muslims are putting up their own candidates. So it's not just they're complaining, they're saying, right, we're going to vote for someone else instead. So the more votes the family party gets, the more the other parties think, we've got a bit of a problem here, haven't we? What can we do to try and get some of these voters back? You see it happen with the Conservatives and Reform. The Conservatives are throwing out policies designed to pull back potential Reform voters. If the Scottish Family Party, as the Scottish Family Party gets more and more votes, the other parties will tend to think, we've got a problem here. Right, well, we've got to start moving our policies to try and cover this bunch off because they're getting a few too many votes. And that's one of the ways your vote can make a huge difference in the nation. Right, Donald Trump. Before I go on to Donald Trump, a quick reminder about our meetings. Aberdeen on Friday night. If you're in the Northeast, do come along to Aberdeen. We've got a campaign meeting. Details are on social media. And 3:30 on Saturday, we've got a campaign launch in Stornoway. And I think it's 7 p.m. in Tarbert on Harris. We've got a campaign launch there for our candidate in the Harris by-election. Then I think the Friday after, we're going to be meeting in Kilmarnock, etc. So lots of things coming up. It would be great to see you. Right. Donald Trump. Interesting story. Well, what was going to have to say about Donald Trump? I think a lesson I would like to put over to Rachel Donald Trump is this. I think generally in politics, one of the things I've learned is that a vast majority of people can only have one thought in their head on one issue. So if it's like Brexit, the thought's got to be for or against. If it's like it's transgender things, for or against. Donald Trump, for or against. Could be one or the other. Okay. But things are not that simple. We really need to look at the new information that comes along. So with someone like Donald Trump, I mean, I've got, how would you put it, grave reservations about the character of Donald Trump. I think some of his policy decisions might have been quite good. There were grave reservations about his character. But he was pro-life. He spoke at the March for Life. He was really definitely pro-life a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe. Now, for me, that's a pretty big plus. mean, someone might have some pretty serious failings as well, but if they're defending the unborn, well, that covers a multitude of sins, to say the least. That's a major plus for Donald Trump in my book. But it's now changed, and he's not pro-life anymore. He's now talking about, oh, well, let's try and find the compromise somehow, so we can find out, and maybe 15 weeks is the right compromise. And I think it's really important when someone changes what they say, we change their assessment of them. It's not rational to just think, oh yeah, I like that person, and then that's it. I'm going to like them forever. Doesn't matter what they say, doesn't matter what they do. That's me, because I just like Donald Trump. But well, you've got to look at what he says, what he does. I mean, in this trial recently, has the trial been fair? To be honest, I haven't got enough knowledge to judge that. Has the severity of the sentence been unreasonable, unusual? Again, I haven't got enough knowledge to do that. It's definitely come out that Donald Trump paid money to a porn star who'd had sex with her in order to shut her up in an election campaign. I mean, that much is an absolute fact. As far as I'm concerned, whether a court's find him guilty or not, or whatever, trying to cover up the payments, that's really not such a big deal. The bigger deal is the fact, he's having sex with this porn star and paying money to cover it up. I mean, that's a pretty serious moral failing. Now, if someone had done that and this came to light and they said they regretted that was something they did at the time, they wish they hadn't done it, it was the wrong thing to do, then yeah, I'm happy to move on. But I haven't really heard that from Donald Trump. So I think sometimes in the media in particular, they become obsessed about the legal process. Has the person been found guilty or not? That's what it really depends on. But I often think, well, it doesn't really depend on that. I mean, it's just the basic facts clear about what he did, and that is a very serious matter. Same with the Alex Salmond trial as well. Okay, he ended up getting off. He wasn't convicted for them. But if you look at the other comments in his admissions and what went on, you still look at it and think, this is not good. Whereas the tendency in the media in particular is you look at this, what the judge says that counts. But that to me is often not the most important thing at all. Yeah, so I think support for Donald Trump and for anyone else should be provisional. I mean, I've had I've probably said before as well, I've had the conversation dozens of times with people who say they're very supportive of Kate Forbes, and I say, did you know she said that? And it's as though don't want to know, do not want to know about that. I like her, I'm on her side, and that's don't confuse me with other information. But we should keep our support for people constantly under review. I talked about this on Sunday at Vision Church, and I said, if in a year's time, if I'm coming on this live stream saying, you know what, I've decided to be a bit more reasonable and moderate about the pro-life thing, I think we really need to take a more understanding approach and try and reach some sort of compromise in the middle on it. And if I came on the live stream in 2 years' time, saying that, I hope you wouldn't say, I like him. Yeah, Richard Lucas. Yeah, he's good. I like him. He's on my wavelength. I hope you'd be saying, I used to like him, but he's changed. He's now saying the wrong things, so I'm done with him. If the family party changed its policy like that, I hope you wouldn't be saying, oh yes, I like the family party. I've watched the live stream for years, and I know quite a few people in it. Yeah, we're good friends. So yeah, I'm sticking with the family party. I hope you wouldn't say that. I hope you'd say, oh, stuff them then. If they've abandoned their principles, if they're not standing up for these most fundamental moral values, then I'm done with them. Not interested anymore. That should be your attitude. That should be your attitude to me. Should be your attitude to the family party. Should be your attitude to Donald Trump. Should be your attitude to Kate Forbes. Should be your attitude to anybody, anyone in the political realm. Right. The debate. The Scottish leaders' debate. Did you watch it? I'll confess, I didn't watch it. I didn't deliberately not watch it, but I didn't happen to get around to sitting down and watching it. I wasn't particularly excited by the prospect of it. But the reason I wanted to mention this, remember Nicola Sturgeon? I used to say she was a female supremacist. And she'd say things like, oh, the world would be a better place if there were more women in charge. and politics would be much nicer if there were more women involved. Just generally, the world would be a better place if there were less men and more women. That's the way to move forward. And on the grounds of that, and other comments, I used to call her a female supremacist, which is intended, obviously, to be a comparison with a white supremacist. Because then being a female supremacist or a male supremacist is about as morally worthy as being a white supremacist. In other words, not at all. But I was interested after this debate. I saw Kate Forbes talking about it, and she was saying she thinks it would have been better if there'd been some women in. Now, again, is that the sort of female supremacism? You just have the automatic assumption that women are better than men. So if you're bringing up sons in this environment, then obviously, we need more women. Remember all the talk, we need a gender balanced cabinet. We're getting there. We're getting more women. We're getting towards a gender balanced cabinet. What are we on now? Is it something like, is it like eight women and 3 men or something? So it's gone totally the other way. I don't mind if they're the most competent people for the job. I mean, dear oh dear if they are, but assuming that they are out of the pool of candidates, then that doesn't bother me in the slightest. But they're thinking of the likes of Nicola Sturgeon, and it seems like the likes of Kate Forbes is just the more women, the better it's going to be, because just women are inherently superior. So the more women you can have involved in something, the better the outcome would be. Have you got that message, boys, in school? Because that is the message the boys are picking up on. It is the ethos of education, that basically girls and women are superior in virtually every possible way. And I don't think that's very healthy at all. Now, I think some politicians think it's a vote winner. It's a pitch to women. If you say, us women, we're the master sex, we're supreme in our capabilities, I think quite a few women might think, oh yeah, preach it, sister, I'll vote for you. You're part of the universal sisterhood of feminists. I'll be on your side. So maybe it does win a few votes. I think if a man were to say it, if I were to say I'm part of the universal brotherhood of strong men, and what we need in politics is more men, that would sort out the problems. And how would that go down? Well, that would go down the way it deserves to. It would go down like a lead balloon. And so should female supremacism as well. So we'll watch this space. I thought maybe that might have died off a little bit with Nicola Sturgeon's exit, but maybe not. The SNP party election broadcast, I'll just mention it briefly. I mean, the content was pretty stale and predictable, I would say. But the one thing I'd like to say, I mean, people have said how low budget it seemed. I just thought it was sort of a bit incompetent. It wasn't that the actors, the 2 people in it, weren't doing a bad job. Just whoever wrote that script and wanted them looking each other in the eye as they talked about the merits of the SNP's record in government and policy platform. It was just bizarre. I mean, why ever would Kate Forbes be telling John Swinney about how the SNP had done a good job running the country and vice versa? It was just weird watching it. Anyway, I better not say too much. Our party election broadcast isn't made yet, but planning is afoot, and I will let you into a little secret. And now the secret is that it's going to be unlike any party election broadcast you have ever seen in your life. Totally unlike. If you see this like 2 politicians sitting talking to each other about the usual issues, it's going to be very different than that. So you can look forward to that, hopefully. We'll see what we can do. I don't know what their budget was for the SNP party election broadcast. I would imagine it was quite substantial. Our budget is quite slim. Well, non-existent, actually. But we'll see what we can come up with. Our party election broadcast in 2021 for the Scottish election, I'll always remember. I'll tell you how it was made, first of all. It was a friend of mine from church, and my wife filmed it using my phone. And then someone edited it together, and off it went to the BBC. That was our party election broadcast. And we had loads of people saying, where'd you get your funding from? How come you can afford like an actress and a film crew to make your party election broadcast? There's something dodgy going on here. Reveal your funding, you criminals. Well, anyway, so we'll see what we'll come up with this time. Two reasons I'll show you this. One, I don't know if you know Wings Over Scotland, an independence blogger who is very knowledgeable and often has the inside line on stories. The downside is gratuitously offensive in a manner that I think is entirely counterproductive. Yeah, he's basically horrible in the way he speaks about people. Anyway, so this is Nigel Farage getting a milkshake thrown over him. And I read this earlier on. It said, just a reminder that this is fine so long as you think it's fine for people to do it to all the politicians you like as well. Right, good point. Fair enough. So if it's fine for Farage, then it's fine for Sturgeon, Robeson, Somerville, Forbes, Reeves, Rayner, Badenoch, Lucas. I was reading that this afternoon, and I have to confess, I had a momentary delusion of grandeur, and I thought he was talking about me, but he wasn't. I assume it was Caroline Lucas, leader of the Green Party in England. So I replied to her saying, yes, certainly not on your life for Lucas. I mean, this incident, I would hope the person who threw that milkshake would be charged with assault, convicted. Now, this is, if she were to lose a job, I don't know what a job would be. If she's a teacher, for example, she should be struck off. So I think there should be a severe penalty as the law can conjure up for doing that. Partly because it's frightening. If someone throws an unknown liquid in your face like that, it's a scary moment. And just what's it going to lead to? If people think people think it's worth it to have your moment of glory, and she certainly had a moment of glory to do that, if they think the glory was worth it with regard to the penalty, then they'll keep doing it. Same with the Just Stop Oil people as well. They think it's worth it to go and try to vandalize some of the most valued treasures of a nation, because they think it's actually not going to be that bad for them. But we need a deterrence that makes people think it's just not worth it. It is not worth doing that because the consequences will be so appalling. I'm not going to do it. And my milkshake is going to go up the straw and down my throat instead of over a politician. So that needs to be dealing with quite harshly. I mean, just to mention Nigel Farage's return. What do I think about that? Well, I think from a family party's point of view, again, I'm a terrible politician. I'll just tell you the truth. It probably cost us some votes because there might be some people who are, sort of culturally conservative. If the choices were the main five parties in Holyrood or the Scottish Family Party, they might go for the Scottish Family Party. If reform's there as an option instead, they maybe go for reform instead. So I think it might cost us some votes. But on the other hand, let's look at, is Nigel Farage a social conservative? Is he pro-life? Absolutely not. Not remotely interested in the issue at all. Is he pro-marriage? Well, I think it's like Boris Johnson. I think a combination of looking at his lifestyle and his stance on the issue, again, it's just not. It's not. So it's not a social conservative. Our central policies, I think, are of no interest to Nigel Farage. There'll be some issues where family party policies and the sort of reform policies might overlap to some extent, but our core policy, our core emphasis is completely different. Right, just before I came on tonight, someone sent a message on Facebook Messenger, I think, saying, can you provide any information about what's taught in sex education? I want to contact my son's school just to see what's going on. Have you got any information to help? So I said, I certainly have. And I sent him the link to our, it's a book about sex education in Scotland. I've just put it in the comments section on Facebook and YouTube. So if you haven't seen that, have a look. It's downloadable. It's not worked on Facebook. So it's downloadable. I can't remember. It's 50 pages, 70 pages or something. A lot of information there. Ideal to take along to a school to challenge them. And if you do take it to a school, I'll tell you what they say. They will almost always say, yes, we do use those resources, but we don't use the bad bits. We don't use the worst bits. Then say, okay, which worst bits don't you use? I'm not quite sure, but don't you worry about it. We would never use anything inappropriate. Everything's age appropriate. Or whatever bit you're concerned about, we probably don't use those bits. That's the standard reply. And I think in many cases, it's not the whole truth. It's a way of trying to fob you off. So I'll be cautious about taking those sort of replies at face value. I'll just try and put that on Facebook again, so something went wrong. Right, that's the end of my slides, but there's videos. We've got some videos to watch. It's 10 o'clock, but I'll keep going. I shall keep going. Right, we've got Keir Starmer. This is quite a nice little video. See what you make of this.
Human rights, and I support the right to self-identification. I think we need to respect the right to self-identify, and we're committed to updating the GRA to introduce self-declaration for trans people.
We don't think that self-identification is the right way forward.
How about that? I find it almost impossible to imagine myself doing that. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine yourself doing that in the most confident terms, saying, this is what I believe, I think this is the best thing, very definitely. And then a couple of years later, no, I don't that. And it's not because, some new information's come to light about it. It's just the tide's changed. The political tide has changed. There's been a bit of a pushback on the trans things. So Keir Starmer's thinking, maybe this is not such a smart move for the Labour Party anymore. So I'm just going to not say that. But what the parties are saying, I think even the Conservatives, they still talk about how can we make the process of changing gender easier, more humane. I mean, I think, that's pretty universal. So self-ID has become, that's controversial, but we still need to make the process simpler one way or another. So it's just like I was saying earlier on. So that people have the conversation about the issue and they're trying to rejig the details or take different angles on it, but no one will get to the heart of the matter. Repeal the 2004 Gender Recognition Act. A man can't become a woman. Full stop. So change the law, and that is the problem sorted out. So Keir Starmer, I mean, can you believe anything he says now? So I think the Labour Party have tried pretty hard to be presenting themselves as a bland, middle-of-the-road, reassuring, non-radical party. And I think they're doing pretty well at it. I mean, Keir Starmer seems to never appear without a Union Jack in the background, which, to say the least, you wouldn't have got with Jeremy Corbyn. You'd be more likely to have a Palestinian flag or Islamic State flag or something behind him. So I think they're trying very hard. And I think this is what Keir Starmer is doing here, is saying, right, as Labour, we just need to avoid saying anything that upsets people. So I can't say that stuff about self-ID anymore. Did he believe it in 2021? Does he believe it now? And then the other question is, what will he be saying after the election? Now, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Now, he's demonstrated he can change his mind when it suits. Now, after the election, Labour Party activists and MPs probably, they'll be saying, what are you doing? You transphobe, you need to get on with this and do it. And maybe you will, maybe you won't. And that's the problem with someone when you can't trust them. You don't know what their principles are. You don't know what they stand for. You don't know if you can believe them. And to my mind, that's a pretty serious problem with a politician. So that one reason alone is enough for me to say there's no way I would vote Labour. I mean, that's only about like reason number 10. There's another 9 better ones, but that's just one of them. Right, bit of fun. I quite like this. Right, you get the idea. I just found that was quite amusing on social media. And it made me think, whoever made that video, put those things together, what were they trying to do? Well, probably what they're trying to do is, what's the word? Glorify is not the right word. They're just trying to portray parenting as something that's a lot of fun, aren't they? That's what it's a lot of fun. And they're showing the sort of things that generally dads would be more likely to do than mums. Mums and dads tend to be different in their role as parents. So they're showing parenting in a really positive light, in particular showing what dads should do, right? Is that a positive sort of message to be delivering? Absolutely. I mean, the BBC is not so much into that message. The BBC is more into, let's speak to the couple who decided not to have any kids about what a great decision that was, etc. So the BBC is like the opposite of that. Or they'll talk about bad parents, or they'll have kids talking about their bad parents. That's what they like to focus on. At the Scottish Family Party, we would try our best to engineer a cultural shift in which parenthood, motherhood, and fatherhood became celebrated, honoured, and seen positively as an ambition, as a pinnacle of life, rather than as an impediment to getting on with the really important things like working in the office or whatever. So that video was quite nice. When I say engineer social change there, I don't mean like engineer social change in the sort of propaganda campaign and restricting freedom of speech or whatever. I mean by just positive cultural leadership. Just talk about it, show videos like that, and try and restore this sort of positive impression of parenthood. Absolutely. Yep. Right, one video to go. Here we go.
That there are many children who are on the brink of trying to take their lives. I've heard of several who've ended up in A&E just in my constituency in the last 2 months. This is an emergency. We need to give it the priority it deserves. And by putting a dedicated mental health professional in every school across the country, we would be taking that early action, early intervention to stop problems spiralling, because we cannot go on like this and we are letting down children.
All right, that's the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems are hot on mental health. They're always saying they're going to spend more on mental health, youth mental health in particular. Now, it's a complex area. Let's not try and be simplistic or sort of black and white about it. So I'm sure there are children in school who need professional support in terms of counselling or psychology or whatever. That's definitely true. I also believe that there's more and more children who need this support for various reasons. And there's all sorts of mental health problems that are just mushrooming. I was talking to someone just the other day who works with people, tends to be teenage girls or 20s as well, with eating disorders. Still a massive problem, often led from some sort of bad experience earlier in life, sometimes sexual abuse of one sort or another. So there is this explosion of emotional problems, basically, with young people, and there might be a need for support. So I get that. The other two sides are, well, what's causing it and what can we do about it? People talk about social media, mobile phones. It's very valid to talk about those, but a lot of other areas as well. I think generation daycare, but the kids are often sent to nursery for very long hours at very early ages, and I don't think that's positive for their emotional and behavioral development. I should say that in a more strong way. That sounded as if it was just my wild guess. There is substantial evidence that confirms that long hours in daycare in early years leads to problems in terms of relationships and emotional regulation, behavior, etc. Later on. So we're causing problems for young people in that regard. Another cause as well is, I think, the message, you might be gay, you might be straight, give it a try, as an experiment, think about it. Whatever. I think that's really destabilizing for young people. And the many thousands who are led to, maybe experiment, try a bit of this, a bit of that, it's disastrous for them. And I think generally, lesbian and gay relationships tend to lead to negative outcomes, and we're encouraging young people down these paths, and and transgenderism as well, ditto squared, and that's contributing very simply to this mental health disaster that we've got with young people. Another aspect of it, it's just a culture where children are taught that you probably need professional support. Your mental health is something you need to be constantly monitoring, and you could become mentally ill at any moment. So kids think, oh, I'm feeling a bit miserable. Oh, I'm mentally ill. But how do you react when you're ill? If you think, oh, I'm feeling a bit miserable, you might think, oh, well, just go and play football then and then feel better. But if you think, oh, I'm ill, I'm mentally ill, what do I need to do? I need to go and see an adult, see a professional, and see if they can fix me. Then see the professional, and it may be, not necessarily, but it may be that professional then makes it worse by saying, oh, tell me what you're worried about. Are you worried about anything at home? How about your friends? Is everything okay? It's like more and more conversation. Can you please find something negative to tell me about? Can you find some more things that will make you miserable to talk about? Because we just want to talk about miserable, negative things for an hour this week. then can we make an appointment next week? And we'll talk about miserable, negative things for an hour next week. And this isn't always helpful, I don't think. So in the situation we're in, if you're saying to children, we've got more and more professional mental health support in place, I believe that can be counterproductive. Is more professional support needed in the situation we're in? I mean, we'll try and sort out the causes. The family party would. The other parties basically have got no clue about most of them because they're issues that they will not touch, they will not consider. So we're trying to deal with the causes. In the meantime, we've got a lot of kids who are basically a mess. And so do they need the support? Very possibly. Is it the right sort of support that's actually going to help them, though? Sometimes maybe they need a bit more of a positive, challenging sort of counsel. Do they get that? Maybe not. So a complicated area, but things are going very wrong and need dealing with drastic action. But at the moment, all we've really got is the Lib Dems saying, spend more money. And the other last thing, well, another thing to say about that, the spending more money approach. When are the politicians going to realize playtime's over? You can't keep doing it. I mean, there's no money. The government has borrowed too much. They've spent a fortune on lockdowns, etc. They've been overspending for decades. The Scottish government has been since it got borrowing powers. The UK government has. And the game's up. They can't just keep borrowing. It's not possible. So they can't just keep saying we're going to spend more and more money to solve all the problems. Because all these problems are caused by values. It's problems in the values and ethos of society, and they're trying to solve them with money. And it doesn't work. And what we're heading towards is a situation where, well, the money's not there. And so there's no option but to sort out the ethos and values in order to prevent people getting into these sort of messes to the greatest degree possible. And that's a big part of what the family party is about. It's interesting when they're talking about the economy. The SNP talked about growing the economy. I mean, what have they done to try and grow the economy? Put taxes up, over-regulate every business going. I mean, to talk about growing the economy, quite a different. The other thing the SNP have done as well is they've sort of destabilized Scotland a bit. It's unclear whether it's going to be independent or not. That can be a deterrent towards investment. I mean, the other thing that Labour will keep talking about, Tory austerity. Now, it makes it sound like the Conservatives have been penny pinching and not spending the money they've got on the things they should do. So there've been these unnecessary restrictions on spending. The UK government has spent billions more than it gets in income forever. That's just been routine for years and years and years. So you've got a government that's overspending, living beyond its means, no realistic plan to ever pay this money back. Debt interest mounting. We pay more on debt interest than we do on defence. So it's becoming an increasing proportion of our taxes just go down the toilet in the debt interest. And the SNP's criticism and the Labour's criticism is, they call this austerity. It's more the SNP. They call it austerity. You should have been spending more. It'd be like if you had a young married couple and they came to see you and they said, we're spending more money than we get in. This is our income, but we're spending £500 more than that every single month. And we're going further and further into debt. And we've got no plan at all. We've got no means of ever paying this debt off. Well, the Conservatives would say to them, okay, that's fine. Just maybe try and rein in your spending. Try and make it so you just overspend it by £400 a month. That's the Conservatives. They're the responsible ones. I mean, the SNP, they've been saying, double your spending. Okay, make it £1,000 over a budget every month. Just don't worry about it. We don't want austerity. We don't want you only spending £500 too much. Spend £1,000 too much. I mean, it really is bizarre. And in Scottish politics, does the SNP ever get challenged on that? Virtually never. I mean, not even by the Conservatives. It's just taken for granted that you should borrow and borrow and borrow with no plan to pay it back. So you're saddling future generations with the duty to pay interest of money that's been spent on this generation, which I think is immoral. It's spending other people's money without their consent. It's spending the taxes of future generations without their consent. And it's just wrong, but it's taken for granted in Scotland. So it's always a shame to end the live stream because the audience goes up and up through the hour. So it's always a shame to finish. So I've gone on a little bit longer this evening, but thank you for your comments and interaction. Let's just go to a comment to finish off there, David. So legal argument destabilizes the decrepitude of management time as a result of generation change, diverting funds to pension as capital flight abroad. Right, quite complex issues there, but yeah, managed decline is definitely the case. So you get governments who just put a short-term pitch to the electorate. So you're sort of offering them some money. You're going to spend more on this, that, and the other. That will get you elected. But when it comes to a long-term view of actually turning the country around, well, people are not really prepared to make that. I think it happens in a democracy when the electorate in general becomes sufficiently self-indulgent and ill-informed about the consequences of irresponsible fiscal policy that they will keep voting in parties that go down this road, and the country gradually declines. I guess it gets to a point maybe when things really stop working that people think, well, we've got to try something different. We've got to elect someone who's going to try and turn things around. But sometimes things have to get pretty bad before before a nation will consider that. So on that cheery note, we will finish up. So hopefully see some of you in Aberdeen or Stornoway or Tarbert next weekend. And our campaign, we haven't really hit the road with our campaign yet, partly because we've been tied up doing things like making leaflets, getting nomination papers in, sorting out finances, etc. A huge amount of work to do behind the scenes. But that work, we're getting towards the end of that work. So you'll see us out and about, and we've got plenty of ideas for things to do. Now, the other part is, how do you run an election campaign? If you're John Swinney, the way you campaign is you pick somewhere to go. I could say, like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to go, to the 10-pin bowling place down the road. Let the media know, and all the media will be there. Then you can stand outside it and say, I think we need to do this, that, and the other. And the media will film you. They'll put it on the 6 o'clock news, and you've done your job. It's a doddle, isn't it? I mean, how easy? I mean, dreamland. Whereas what can we do? I mean, I could go anywhere and say, right, this is where we're going. I'll give a little speech. Media are not going to cover anything at all. So we've got to do different things to attract attention and to engage viewers. Now, the other parties have got an advantage. There's people sitting watching the telly. And when you're watching the telly, you tend to be in quite a sort of passive mode. So if someone comes on who actually, is sort of a bit boring, you don't really want to listen, it's only going to be about like 20 seconds. So you just sit through it and hear what John Swinney's got to say, hear what Keir Starmer's got to say, hear what Rishi Sunak's got to say. Okay, you just sit and watching the news. Okay, that's fine. So they have their say. For us, it's not like that. There's no one sitting back thinking, okay, here's the family party bit. I'll hear what they've got to say. Okay, that's that. Let's see what's next. There is no audience like that. We have to grab our audience one way or another. And we've got some ideas to do that. Now, of course, when we do something to grab an audience, there's always some people who say, oh, I wish you could just do like the other parties do. I wish you could just go on the leaders' debate and stand there and just explain your policies there, like all the other politicians. Yeah, I wish I could as well. I would love it. I mean, to be honest, I would be absolutely in my element. I mean, out of the various things I could do, if I've got a superpower, like going into a debate with people, I think I would do that. I'm pretty good at that. But that's not a particularly valuable power in my position because we don't get invited to that sort of things. The other, Scotland's a debate desert for us. So we have to go out and make news and grab attention. So we'll do some things that are, fun, striking, bold, and we'll see where we get to. But right, thank you very much for watching. Those of you watching now, and those of you who are going to watch later. And I'll hopefully see you on the campaign trail somewhere in the next few weeks. Right, good night.